All right, I'm gonna attempt to come up with some kind of analogy to explain what my life is like. Kind of. I mean, imagine imagine if you woke up one day and there were thousands of dragons flying around in the sky, and UFOs flying around, and cities being melted everywhere, and like people frozen in place. And there's like frickin' Martians walking down the street with ray guns going pew pew pew, blasting people and everything, right? And you had I don't know. But everyone, or almost everyone around you, was behaving as though nothing was happening, as though this was all perfectly normal. And if you pointed out any of this to anybody, they might acknowledge that it was going on, but they seemed to be completely unfazed by it and completely like they couldn't give a shit, you know. And then you find out that there's, hundreds or thousands of other people out there or more in the world that noticed what you noticed, that saw the things you saw, but nobody listens to you. And you're just expected to go about your daily life, and set your alarm in the morning, get up and go to work, and go about your day-to-day life, and behave as though none of the crazy shit is going on. It's kind of a shitty analogy, I guess, but yeah, it's kind of a poor analogy, I guess, but I don't know. I mean, there's weird, super weird stuff going on in the world, and we're all just like, did you watch Dancing with the Stars? Oh, yeah, cool. Hey, you watched the Super Bowl? Oh, yeah, what's your team? I'm rooting for the fucking, oh, go Redskins, or whatever, right? Like, who gives it? And there's like a fucking flying saucer in your backyard. You're like, hey, dude, flying saucer in the back. Like, yeah, well, shit. I'm trying to watch TV, quiet, It's like, what the fuck? There's all kinds of just stupid explanations that people put out. The dumbest fucking explanations you can think of for things that are intense, supernatural sorts of experiences that are taking place on Earth. And it just seems to go by, things just go by unnoticed, unmentioned, or nobody cares. If anything even is mentioned, it's just like, oh, that's neat, that's weird. I mean, what about all these videos of people? I mean, there's all kinds of videos. I could put together a playlist, probably with like hundreds or thousands, I would imagine, of videos of really strange, weird, supernatural shit. I mean, a bunch of different topics. I mean, there's many thousands of like legit freaking UFO videos. There's many thousands, hundreds if not thousands of videos of things like birds and airplanes frozen in place in the sky, people frozen in place, animals frozen in place. Like a video of like a dozen chickens just frozen in place, or videos of dogs just frozen in place, whole herds of sheep, groups of like 50 or 100 people just frozen in place, and individual. I mean, there's so much weird stuff like that is on video, and there's videos of like cats that look like they're walking, but they're not going anywhere. It's almost like they're on a treadmill or something. Looks like they're trying to walk down the sidewalk, but right? There's all kinds of weird, like, look like Matrix glitch kind of stuff going on, But nobody seems to care. It's just like swept under the rug. Nobody fucking cares. And Mandela effect. People have been talking about the Mandela effect for what, like, freaking, jeez, almost 10 years now? But there doesn't seem to be any progress in comprehending what the heck it is, or even hardly any discussion about the more intense sort of things. People are still just, going back and forth talking about, oh, have you seen this new animal or this new plant? Oh, did you notice that the spelling of this thing changed or the spelling of that thing is different? Like, or the song lyrics sound different? Like, we're still stuck on, like, super basic shit, basically. When we have, like, things so much more intense going on, That most people, it's been the Mandela effect sort of stuff. People have been talking about it for, like, 10 fucking years or something, right? But you could walk up to your average person on the street and ask them what they think of the Mandela effect. Half of them never even heard of the shit, and the other half will just pretend like, oh yeah, that's weird, just misremembering. It's just so freaking obvious, man. There's people experiencing things like time slips and complete, drastic changes to reality. People talking about, like, can they shifting to different dimensions and stuff like that, but there's hardly any real discourse about it. Like, it just seems weird. God. I've experienced all kinds of weird, like, matrix glitches and alterations to reality, some of which seem kind of personal, almost like I'm, I don't know, Truman or something, the freaking Truman Show sometimes, where it seems like you go places and it feels like you're the center of attention, like you're some kind of actor, or you're surrounded by actors or something that are just playing a role or something. Like, one thing I noticed about this place that's weird is it seems like in many instances, I'm not saying in all instances, but in many instances, there seem to be a lot of people that don't. How do I put this? I think I'm about to say something that it just doesn't really do justice to what I'm intending on purveying here, but it seems like people don't have a clue what they're doing. Like, I had I think it was like an old Schwinn bicycle I was selling one time, and this guy talks to me on the phone, and he sounds like he makes himself out to be some kind of, like, bicycle expert, like he knows everything about bicycles or something, right? And the guy shows up, and it becomes, immediately evident that the guy has never rode a bike in his life. Like, he doesn't even know how to ride the bicycle, you know? Like, this is, or another example would be, I remember years back I went to college guidance counselor or something to try and person whose job it is to know, like, how to use your student loans and your grant to pay for things and how to get enrolled in classes. And this person seemed completely oblivious. They didn't seem to have a clue. Like they didn't seem, they were completely unhelpful. They seemed to have no idea how anything worked. Like, and I run into stuff like that, like, frequently enough to where, in areas where somebody is supposed to be an expert in their field or something, and you find out that, like, this person has no idea what they're talking about. you know And you can find this in a lot of things, especially if you have like a certain level of intelligence, if you have some understanding of things, like you can go look into like, I mean, I think if you're not all that sharp or whatever, it's easier to bullshit you, I guess. But like when you have like, you don't even have to be that smart, just like a little above average intelligence. You can look around and listen to so-called scientists, doctors, physicists, all these people that are just supposed to be these brilliant experts, and half of them sound like blithering morons, like they have no idea what they're talking about. It's like that with almost everything, it seems like. I mean, I'm not saying everybody's like that, but there's a lot of that out there. A lot of people that are supposed to be like the ultimate authority, expert in certain things, that you just listen to them, and if you're paying attention and you actually like listen to them for a while, it becomes more and more evident that these people don't know what they're talking about. It's like they're an actor that's just pretending to know stuff that they don't actually know, you know? And you'll see all kinds of other weird stuff like, I mean, there's tons of weird stuff going on, man. Some of the weird stuff that I've noticed, maybe one of the reasons why I've noticed so many weird things, some of it has been while I was drunk. Like I noticed that like I could get into a state of mind to where it was, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like I felt like I had some sort of ability to alter the matrix, so to speak. Like I could want it to be, it's cloudy and raining, and I want the sun to come out, and in no time it's sunshine and blue skies again, or I want it to be quiet, and then all of a sudden there's no traffic driving by on down Main Street, or there's sirens everywhere, and you just want it to shut up, and then all of a sudden it shuts up, and there's no more noise. Weird stuff like that. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like I don't know. When I was a kid, I used to watch this movie because I thought the girls were hot, and I was kind of brainwashed into thinking witchy stuff was cool and stuff like that. So I watched this movie, The Craft, and she talked about how it said, a natural witch. And I don't know. I don't know why I'm bringing that up, but it's like this chick said, I just wanted it to be quiet, and I went deaf for a week or something. Like, it, no, I mean, I had this experience like, and I've had stuff like this happen like lots of time, a number of times, like more so when I'm drunk, though. I mean, honestly, because it's like I believe in myself more or something. I don't know, but like there's been times where, well, just as one example, like a few months ago, I was drunk. I went out to have a cigarette, and there's all these sirens, like fire trucks and whatever the heck, from coming from just about every direction. And I just thought, shut up, and I just snapped my fingers, and it just all went quiet. Like all the sirens just shut off at the same time. I mean, I'm not really sure how this stuff works, but it seems like I've actually had some experiences that are kind of like, Neo in the Matrix kind of shit. So, So it's hard not to notice stuff, and it's hard to just go about day-to-day life and to maintain focus on normalcy when I've had experiences that are so intense that I don't know. I mean, it would be like waking up to your alarm clock, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, going out to your normal job, and just like I don't know, organizing paper clips at a desk all day for a paycheck, while there's like flying saucers fucking going by the window outside, shooting laser beams out and melting everybody's cars in the parking lot, and everybody else is just sitting there like, oh, this is normal, you know. And you're just supposed to go about your day-to-day life and do this normal ass shit and pretend like the weird stuff isn't there. I don't know, maybe it's like it's a beautiful mind or something. You just... I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on in the world. It seems like it should be like topics of utmost importance to all of humanity, basically. But people just are so intent on just continuing on as though all the stuff going on is normal. There's so much weird stuff going on in the world, so much that is so far from normal. It seems to me that our very mode of existence of day-to-day life for humanity is so far from natural, so far from normal. But then on top of that, you got all this really weird, like supernatural sort of stuff going on too. What it is like, it seems like nothing adds up. Nothing really adds up. Nothing makes sense. And I want things to make sense, but they just fucking don't, you know? I mean, I could point out how there's almost nothing in this world that makes sense if you really dig into it. If you really think about it. I mean, and I really mean like almost nothing. I'm gonna try and come up with some basic examples. Well, how does it make sense to you? Well, look at the development of computers, the advancement of computing technology in the last 50 years. I mean, it would be like going from the invention of the wheel to like having intergalactic space cruisers in like 50 years or so, or in like one generation. It makes no sense. It's completely unrealistic. But we just go about our life like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Perfectly normal. Oh, it's perfectly normal that we got quantum computing and fucking AI now, and I had like a 2 GB hard drive in my fucking Windows 95 computer, not that long ago. In the early 2000s, and we got phones, and we got, cell phones carry around in our pocket that are more powerful than like a supercomputer fucking 50 or 100 years ago, right? And this is just all seen like that makes sense, perfectly normal, you know? Nobody questions it. Nobody thinks, hey, that doesn't make any fucking sense. It's weird, That's just one example. I mean, you could take something really simple though. I mean, like take copper wire. How much copper wire do you think there is in the world around us, right? I mean, all the wires in every house, every building uses electricity. All of our electronic devices, cars, trucks, airplanes, cruise ships, everything. All this copper wire running all throughout all that. I mean, think about just try to get your fucking head around like how much human and material resources and time would go into even, to the creation, refinement, distribution of that much copper to be made into that much copper wire to be distributed to that much of the planet. I mean, just it boggles the mind. Or take, aluminum cans, something as simple as that, and think, you know, I mean, the soda. I mean, they've been manufacturing these aluminum cans. They were, cans being manufactured in the 60s or 70s, 80s, whatever, right? 70s and 80s, anyways, right? And the stuff expires. You look at a can of soda, it expires in a few years. Now think about all the beer cans, all the soda cans, all the to distribute. I mean, think about how many you have in your house right now. How many are at every store? All the little convenience stores everywhere, the grocery stores, like, and then think. Start. You gotta like use your head, man, and start kind of trying to visualize this and on a larger and larger and larger scale until you start to get a grasp of the extreme like hugeness of it, of just how incomprehensible it really is to really when you think about it. I mean, can you even imagine like how large of a factory, how large of a mine, how large of mines, how large factories, would have to be to extract and refine that much aluminum or that much copper or whatever, right? And then to manufacture that many, just say aluminum cans or copper wire, like or whatever, right? Think about like how many resistors would have to be manufactured in varying different types and scale and so on, like in order for us to all these TVs and cell phones and computers and so on and so forth. Like, just think about the scale of it. I mean, look at your fucking smartphone, for instance, right? I mean, all the little parts that are in that smartphone, just one phone. It could be 10 or 15 year old fucking smartphone, and it's incredible the amount of fucking shit that is in that thing. You ever seen inside the parts that are inside that shit? Like, how did people figure out how to put all those parts together? How to manufacture individually all of those separate parts, put them all together in just a certain way to create this, supercomputer device that you can fit in your pocket. When, like, 60, 70 years ago or something, for something to have like one millionth of the computing powers that would take up the size of an entire gymnasium or something. Like it's or do you ever think about like how many like you could point at almost anything, and if you really think about it, it's incomprehensible the amount of human and material resources that would have to go into creating that thing. Like, I mean, how many of you could go down to say a Radio Shack or something, or could just order parts online and assemble your own microwave? or television, you know? Or could you take the, imagine, imagine, I mean, here's where it really gets mind-boggling if you really think about it, like just anything, whether it be an aluminum can or like, or something more complex like a smartphone or a laptop. Imagine if, in order for you to have a laptop, you had to mine for the raw materials to create all the metals and to create all the different types of plastics, and the you had to gather and refine all the materials to make the liquid crystal display, to make your own wiring, to make your own resistors, capacitors, like, and you had to make all of that yourself from scratch, from raw mineral mined from somewhere on Earth, right? Like, imagine like how pretty much damn near impossible that would be for you to can do, right? Now, just when you think of that, and then you like realize how grand of a scale we're talking about here, like, it's unreal. What I'm saying is it's highly unlikely. It's unrealistic. It's seemingly ridiculous to think that this is organic, that this makes sense, that we just naturally developed into this, right? Some natural progression of time and study and so on made it, to where we developed into these, into the world we're living in today. It doesn't make sense. I mean, there's so many things about this place that don't make sense, really. I mean, there's huge fucking things that don't make sense. Stuff that like most people don't even talk about, or probably never even watched a video about because it sounds so crazy. But like, you ever look into like mud flood or the resets? Look into ancient architecture. I mean, you believe that a bunch of people that were getting around on horseback with horses and wagons transported multi-thousand ton stones that they mined at some quarry and carved them into perfect shape and stacked them, so high to create these giant, monstrous sized buildings while they were like, you know, trotting down the street on horses and stuff. Like, are you kidding me? All these mountains around that look like tree stumps and faces on everything look like giant, and things that look like giant body parts and stuff all over the place had turned to stone. Like, there's so much weird stuff here that doesn't add up, that doesn't make sense. But I mean, you don't even have to look at like all that weird, extra weird stuff. Anything, almost everything about this place doesn't add up. From something as simple as the abundance of copper wire or resistor manufacturing, to the manufacturing of shoes on such a scale that everyone on Earth has a pair of shoes, has a bunch of, hundreds of pairs of shoes throughout their lifetime. Like, just that alone is such a grandiose scale that it's unthinkable. I mean, how long have they been made? How long? Here's something you can look at. Something that seems basic, right? I mean, without even thinking about all the separate individual parts that go into, say, a flat screen TV. Let's say 55-inch flat screen TV. How common is that? How many of those have been manufactured in the last, say, 20 years or whatever, right? I mean, at this point, probably almost everybody in the world has something like that in their home. And while that may be true, there's still every store you go to has thousands of them in the storeroom, has hundreds of them out on display. And then somewhere, some factories have millions more of them, like, and yet they're still being manufactured and mass produced. Why? There's probably been so many flat screen 55-inch TVs produced in the last 20 years that there's probably I don't know. I don't know how grand the scale is, but I would say that it would not be that absurd to think that there may be 1 million big flat screen TVs per person alive on Earth, or perhaps even more. The same could be said of microwaves, refrigerators, washers and dryers, automobiles, so on and so forth, right? But we allegedly have a housing shortage. There's allegedly shortages of things. Like, I mean, shit doesn't add up, you know what I mean? Something I found interesting. I wish I could find this article again. There's a number of things that I read in the past that just seem mind-blowing to me. I remember reading some article one time about World War One, about the U.S. involvement in World War One, and how the beginning of World War One, the there was like a list that listed the amount of like actual military gear and soldiers and so on that the U.S. had prior to World War One. It's like pathetic. Like, basically, some rich guy in Texas right now has 1,000 times more fucking weapons and military forces at his disposal than our entire country did prior to World War One. Basically, like, just some redneck in fucking Arkansas has more. I mean, it's like than the entire country. But the manufacturing, the ability to mass manufacture things so quick, so rapidly, and to raise such a large army so rapidly, to go in and it was insane. The amount of development from World War One and World War Two is it's even impossible. Like, if you really look into like where we were at to begin with versus where we were, by the time World War II came along, just in the short time, suddenly I mean, we didn't even have it. We didn't have an Air Force. We didn't have, we didn't really have a Navy to speak of. What Navy we did have was basically like, leftover freaking clipper ships from the freaking, like, from like, Revolutionary War era fucking shit, and then suddenly we have all these submarines and battleships and destroyers and aircraft carriers and huge fleets of, biplanes, and like, it's insane. It's unrealistic is what I'm saying. It's highly, there's so many things about this world that if you really look into them and you look into it, like, it's fucking extremely unrealistic for the world to be the way it is. Extremely, I would say, inorganic, forced, like very not like this sort of shit would it would be impossible for things like for these sort of things to happen. I mean, on the scale that they do, if not full on impossible, like highly unlikely. But not only that, I mean, looking at what we have, looking at what already exists now, what more do we need? So why do we continue to produce things that are already that when we already have an abundance of everything, basically? You may not realize that we have such an abundance of everything, but when you really look into it, like you find that we do already have an extreme abundance of absolutely pretty much everything. So then why do we continue to produce things that have already it would be like if I mean we just keep making more and more and more and more and more. For who? Who are we building all this shit for? Why are we building more stuff than there are people on Earth in such a vast quantity? There's all kinds of things I could point out that just don't make sense about this place. That are, if you think about it, especially if you start really digging, although it's kind of difficult to find precise information, but you can find a little bit, enough to point out that something's fishy here, you know? I mean, take meat production or the amount of meat consumption in the United States, for instance, right? If you look into that, like how many hamburgers and steaks and so on and so like versus how many cows there are, you know, it doesn't add up. I mean, basically, like the entire cow population of Earth would be extinct in the basically almost the blink of an eye or something, like in like a year or less, if it was true, right? The information, the shit, the math doesn't add up on just about anything in this world. Like, I mean, it would have to be some kind of a computer simulation or something in order for this stuff to go on because it just doesn't add up. We're told about how scarce the resources are, and oh, we don't have enough of this or enough of that for, but you see time and time again, the more you look into it, that there is no scarcity. There is an abundance of absolutely everything. Or else such a level of mass manufacturing would not be able to take place. Such a massive amount of mass consumption would not be able to take place. You know? So on and so forth. It would be impossible. People talk about worrying about sustainability and into the future and so on, but I mean, look, like we would have ran out of shit hundreds of years ago, thousands of fucking years ago, the level that we're at. Like, if this place was real, we're not being told the truth about things. I don't think, and I don't know. I don't think that anyone really has the answer necessarily. I mean, there's a whole lot of people that really believe strongly that they have some ultimate answer that it can be found in this book or that book, or or that, oh, it's the aliens, or it's this or it's that. But I mean, it seems to me that like, yeah, I mean, look into things or whatever, try to figure something out, but if things aren't adding up, then well, they're not adding up. Not adding up. I mean, if if 2 and 2 don't equal 4, then something's awry here. I mean, I mentioned before, there's all these videos, and I've seen this myself personally. I don't know how many of you have seen this sort of stuff for yourself, but there's videos of the sorts of things that I've seen out on YouTube of like animals and people frozen in place, seem to be frozen in time. A whole herd of sheep, or dozen chickens just standing in place, like frozen in place for several minutes at a time. I've seen this sort of stuff myself. There's videos of airplanes and birds like frozen in place in the sky. I mean, call me crazy, but this stuff seems like it could be important. you know, the very nature of our reality comes into question. I don't know. There's a lot of things here that don't make sense. I could use, alcohol as an example. I mean, I've had a problem where, I end up wanting to just, wanting to some sort of escape from reality, so to speak, from all the from the strangeness, but end up experiencing more strangeness when I drink. But I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, how weird is it that something like that is produced on such a grand scale that you literally can't go to a grocery store or a convenience store or anything and buy a bottle of water without having to walk past tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of gallons of alcohol. I mean, think about how, like, the amount of of human and material resources and manufacturing that would have to go into producing that much. The amount of prime farmland in a world where we allegedly have a food shortage that's being used to produce sugar cane, hops, barley, so on and so forth, in order to produce all these types of liquor. How fucking crazy is that? How weird is it that we're living in a world that, like, where there isn't even such a thing as a temperance movement anymore anywhere? Where, things like AA and other treatment centers are multi-billion dollar, if not multi-trillion dollar industries that you can find in every small town in the country and all over the world. And yet, with all that financial backing and all that human and material resources, there's not a single inkling of any desire for a temperance movement. That seems strange, doesn't it? I mean, I suppose you could say that, maybe that you could say that there's a profit motive, that, you know, maybe AA wouldn't be making so much money and have so many customers if they weren't selling liquor at every fucking store in the country, right? I mean, checks out, but doesn't it seem weird though. I mean, you saw how in very short time, like very quickly, for some reason, the tobacco industry came under attack, and now tobacco is seen as this like evil thing by so many people, and that they blame it for all the cancer in the world and all this other stuff. And now the cigarettes have to be hidden behind the counter in the store, but the wine and the beer can have basically cartoon characters on the fucking label right in your kid's face. I mean, how weird is that? I mean, you ever been to a rehab or AA where somebody came in and told you a story about how their family member died because they were smoking a cigarette while driving? And no? Weird. It's just a lot of strangeness in this world. Very, very strange. A lot of stuff that doesn't add up. And yes, clearly there are agendas being pushed that are kind of steering the direction of a lot of the crazy stuff going on in the world, but there's something beyond that, something beyond, human effort and whatever political agendas or philosophical agendas that people have that are pushing. There's some weird stuff going on. You see people or animals or airplanes frozen in the sky, people, birds frozen in place in the sky. Like, you got to start to question the nature of your reality. And if the nature of reality is in question, then everything we have going on here in our regular society, day to day lives, seems kind of meaningless in comparison. It seems to me. I mean, there are big, big questions that need to be answered. I don't know, man. It's just weird stuff going on. And there's all kinds of people that have theories about what's going on. A lot of people say that it's biblical apocalypse, that our world we've got a bunch of demons running around and fallen angels that are, changing our reality and possessing people and blah, 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 blah. We're like, I mean, it seems that way. And other people say it's aliens are running the world or something. Well, some people believe that there's more land out that we're on something like a flat Earth or something, and that we're surrounded by an ice wall that keeps us in like a prison. That there's other continents, and that the people, the ones that rule the world, exist outside in some sort of continents outside the ice wall, and that they're flying all these UFOs and ruling over the world, and we're just like their slaves producing shit for a world that we're not a part of. I don't know, but it'd be interesting to have the answers, wouldn't it? There's this show on Netflix. What's it called? Westworld. That's kind of what it reminds me of when some of the stuff I've seen, like when you see animals and people frozen in place. It reminds me of these scenes from Westworld where the controllers just switch people off or whatever, and like the people are like robots or so. I don't know. It makes you wonder, though. It really makes you wonder. Like, what the hell is this place, you know? They always keep us distracted so we don't think about these sort of things. We're all too busy striving to make money, trying to have a home for ourselves, trying to have relationships with other people, and nobody wants to talk about things that are, you know, beyond our understanding. So we just go about our lives, keep ourselves distracted with entertainment and with, you know, movies and music and politics and religion and all this other stuff. But it seems like there's something major here that just things just don't add up. This the world, the whole way the world is run, like all this, none of this seems organic. I mean, people talk about politics and they'll argue about Democrat versus Republican, about some scary law that some politician wants to pass, or some terrible thing the government's doing here or there, or some war that's supposedly going on overseas, or whatever, right? And we stay wrapped up in this storyline about these things. But it seems to me that something so much bigger is happening, you know? That all of these things are just kind of like a distraction. I mean, there's something so absurd about it all, really. Like, whether you want to look at the, you know, the whole gender bending thing that's going on, or the political debates, or any of it, it just seems completely, it doesn't make sense. Like, and if you want to talk about, say, oh, evil forces ruling the world or whatever, right? Oh, the devil, or, you know, I mean, it looks like it, but why would they be so obvious? Like, take like if the world is run by evil and there's fallen angels and demons and the devil's taking over the world and it's all this, like, why be so obvious though? Right? Like, why do they have to have our attention? Like, do you really think it would have been that hard for them to cover up a lot of things that are, I mean, a lot of things that come to light that people are finding out about seem, it seems like these are things that some people say it's a revealing, that all things are being revealed or whatever, right? But I mean, it seems to me that people were learning about a lot of things that. Have you ever considered that, like, the sort of things that we see is we're being allowed to find out about these things? We're supposed to believe that, say, like, take the evil stuff going on in the world, for instance. You say there's all these evil people and they're doing all this satanic occult stuff and whatever, right? And you hear about these things, you research it, and it all appears legit. But it's so crazy. Like, why would you even do that, right? Why be so obvious? You know? I mean, take the sicko, pedo sort of shit, right? For instance, people are coming right out in the open, acting all fucking weird, dressing up in freaky costumes and stuff now, right? Whereas in the old days, you would think it'd be some dude, the Cub Scout leader or the teacher or something. Why is all this weird shit out in the open now? Why is everything that was once in the closet out of the closet? You know what I mean? It just doesn't add up. Doesn't add up. I mean, if you try to research almost anything, it's like everything. You look on the internet, it seems like everything is controlled. If you're someone who's looked into conspiracy theories and stuff for very long, you know what I mean. It's like every topic of discussion, there's only a certain limited number of people that are allowed to speak on a topic, and everyone else is silenced. I mean, if you look in the comment sections of some people's videos, you'll see thousands of people having discussions about things on a whole other level from what the video is actually discussing. But you don't see those people having videos out of their own, or very rarely do you run into somebody real that has a channel, or if they do have a channel, they've only got like a few subscribers and nobody's ever heard of them. You know? It seems to me that all the information is controlled from. You ever heard of have you ever watched the video? Here's some videos I suggest. Look this up. Fake. Have you ever heard of the fake internet theory? About how like the internet is like a Potemkin village. Did you know that you could search in Google or pretty much any search engine for anything you want, any topic you want, and it'll say that there's 500 million results, or 3.6 billion results, or whatever, right? But then you get past like page 20 or 30 or something, and you've reached the end of the results. Like all the rest of those results no longer pull up anything. And it doesn't matter what topic you're searching for all that much, really. You could be looking for a recipe for chocolate cake. Something as basic and pointless as that, right? And you're only going to get a certain limited number of results that you can actually click on and actually. There's a lot of really strange things that I notice in this world. I've seen a lot of things that probably most people have never seen, like I've seen videos where it looked like armored columns and tanks rolling down the street, and then it shows that actually they're just like balloons, just with like people walking around pushing these balloons that look like it's a tank or something, like totally fake stuff. There's like fake cities, like in Indiana Jones Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where he shows up, he running from the Soviets or whatever, and he ends up in this fake city. You know, just like a bunch of mannequins and you know, right? There's really stuff like that, all over the place. There's things that just fake stuff. Like, I don't know what to believe anymore. Like when they talk about wars going on, and you see footage of battleship, or you see footage of some military thing happening across the world, and everyone's talking about it. But you don't really know if any of that shit is even real. Unless you're there in person, you've seen it with your own eyes. Because, I mean, look what they can do in Hollywood, you know? One thing I discovered, and I would really like to dig into this more because it's interesting, and I think I'd be able to maybe point out things about how the world works better. I'd maybe have a better understanding if I learn more about this. But there are casting agencies in cities and countries all over the world where they're casting for roles, for all sorts of different roles, for crisis actors and things, for instance. Um, and there's a lot of big major events that really seem to shape the direction society is going that may not have even been real, like the George Floyd thing, for instance. I was able to find, a internet movie database like actor profiles for the guys that were the cops in that. And George Floyd himself was, uh, had an actor profile and was, had been in some pornos and stuff, right? And they just happened to like already have all these signs and T-shirts and things ready to go, like the second it happens or even before it happened. Like, who manufactured all that stuff? Why was it? Why was all that, you know, that gear available so quickly? Who managed to manufacture all that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're able to steer narratives for events that they make these big news headlines and stuff. But it could be entirely staged, entirely fake. There's all kinds of things you can look into, or if you really look, like, I remember there was, I saw this video once, what was that kid's name that, dang it, that kid that, shot, said he shot some protester or something, and then he got put on trial. And somebody was showing footage. I remember seeing a video. Somebody was showing the footage of the court of the trial, that there were like glitches, screen glitches that show that it was like all green screen, basically. You know, like, how much of our reality is real, genuine reality versus just a bunch of actors playing a role. You know, the wars going on around the world. Like, how much of that is even real? Is it even real? Or are we just being shown fucking CGI footage and some sort of green screen CGI footage, or old clips from 20, 30 years ago, or whatever. Like, what's really happening in the world? I mean, you think you know what's going on in the world? I don't. I mean, really, have you ever thought about that? Like, about the fact that, I mean, look, back in the 90s, think about, what was that, Independence Day, right? This is from back in like the 90s. They were able to make a film that looked fairly photorealistic of a bunch of giant UFOs hovering over US cities and, attacking Earth and all these aliens flying around. I mean, what makes you think they couldn't use that sort of Hollywood magic to show you video of anything and make it believable, and they could tell you stories of World War III going on overseas and could literally just be playing some Hollywood CGI shit, or telling you that we landed on the moon or whatever, and they could be showing you CGI Hollywood movie set type. You know what I mean? It's like you can't trust anything anymore, really. I mean, you want to talk about weird shit? Like weird shit that I could point out. You can go watch video yourself, and if you actually dig into it, you can see it for yourself. Like, for instance, during 2020 and years following, you could see the political debates and these interviews that they had where they said it was Biden or Trump or whatever, or Fauci giving a speech or whatever, right? And there's all these footage of what appears to be people wearing what looks like a rubber mask. Like, I mean, you look it up. You can still find some of this stuff. Like realistic looking rubber mask of somebody's face. Like, when you see a politician give a speech, is it really even them? Or is it some guy wearing a Hollywood mask on his face? Or is it entirely CGI? I used to see videos even. I would notice stuff on live TV where they'd be showing some political debate, and there would be some kind of camera glitch, and you could see people. You could see right through the person that was allegedly talking, like it was a hologram or something, that was glitching out. There's a bunch of stuff like that, where it's like we're seeing shit that's just like green screen fucking CGI sort of shit everywhere, man. I mean, there's news that there's was it China or where it is that they're doing it? They had this is like openly known about, that there are artificial intelligence, completely CGI based news anchors. You know, that's been happening for a while. Like, but how long? How would you know how long that's been going on? How do we know that we haven't been watching? You turn on the news or you turn on a political debate. I mean, are those people even real? Or are they just an actor? Or just a, freaking CGI, hologram or something? You know what I mean? At this point, anything goes, basically. I mean, I remember there was a video from years ago. This was years ago. Somebody took a video, it was like at the Vatican or something, of what looked like the Pope coming to the window, and he just disappeared into thin air. Like a hologram or something, Like, you'll see other, like, there's all kinds of like weird glitches and stuff on when you look through like the news and political stuff, especially. So many like sort of like green screen glitches, and not only that, but like, okay, here's a search topic you look up. Yeah, just look up Matrix glitches, man. There's so many things where like a news broadcaster, somebody's reading the news, or who's a weather girl or something, just suddenly freezes in place, or they start glitching out. You can look it up. You can see tons, hundreds, thousands of videos of these weird like glitches, things that don't make sense. I mean, the more I pay attention, like, I mean, I can just zone out and go about my day and go, drop off food to people, but it's hard to zone out enough to not notice the sort of strange stuff that's going on around me when I go play. I mean, one of the things I noticed right off the bat when I started doing DoorDash was that it would be the same, couple dozen names. At first, it was fewer, and now it's the same, but the same names, same addresses usually, but at a bunch of different locations. And the names seem fake most of the time. It'd be like Hunter S, like, or sometimes just like super obviously fake sounding names. Well, like one of the people that I've delivered to before, the name comes up as like Dat Boy, right? Or I get one that says Hunter S, or another dude has a name just says Raven. You know, like how can they do that, right? For one thing, like how can they even order food with a fake name in the first place or whatever, right? I mean, I can't change my Dasher profile to count to give myself a fake name or something that I'm, at least not that I'm aware of. But somehow these people are ordering food with a debit card or a credit card with a fake name on it. Like that doesn't. Yes, Raiden. Yes, the god of thunder and lightning from Mortal Kombat has ordered some Burger King delivered to him. Like what? Hunter S. Thompson wants some Taco Bell. Like a lot of strange things I notice about this place. Like that's just one of the sorts of things. Like I'll get a delivery to say I don't know, say just come up with a random name, say Janice or whatever, right? It'll be say 762 West Rose Street or something, right? And then another order, another day will be the same name, address looks the same, but it's actually not the same. It's completely on the other side of town. Like it'll be east instead of west, or it'll be right. Things like that. Just weird stuff. Hmm. I don't know, man. There's a number of other weird things that I noticed, like the sort of stuff on the road. Sometimes I don't know. Well, I'll give you some more examples of like strange reality glitches or what it seems like to me in my experiences. A long time ago, at this point, it's been almost about 10 years or something almost. I got this DUI. It's on Friday the 13th. Something was interesting about it. I went out. I mean, it was kind of late, but not that late, and I don't even remember exactly what day of the week it was, other than I remember the date. But Something strange about it was that I went out. I was planning on going to Walmart to get a. I wanted to get a sandwich, and I think I probably wanted to buy more beer or whatever, right? But I take off in my truck, and I drove into town, and I didn't see any other cars on the road anywhere. I was like the only car on the road. Like, that's pretty freaking weird. And I ended up driving to the Walmart parking lot when the cops started coming after me. There's two cop cars at the same time flip on their lights. I mean, they came like a bat out of hell from out in the country. I had the footage of their dash cams. That was weird too, because I saw that, and they just started booking it from like the middle of nowhere out in the country where I would come from, kind of. And they came flying to come from the middle of nowhere to try and catch up to me to get it behind me. I mean, somebody had to have. The only logical thing would be that some neighbor of mine must have fucking saw me having a beer or something before I left and narked me out or something. Like, if you were trying to come up with some logical explanation of this, they came flying, two vehicles, to come pull me over. I went to the Walmart parking lot because if I had just. I wasn't that far away, and if I just stopped on the side of the road, I knew my car would get towed. And I figured if I left at the Walmart park, if I parked at the Walmart parking lot, I could probably get back there and get my vehicle. If you, because I've had, I know if you just pull over on the side of the road immediately or something, they're gonna have your car towed. It's gonna be towed to the impound. You're gonna have to pay hundreds of dollars to get it back. You know. But yeah. Anyway, I mean that was a Friday the 13th. A couple days after some like blood moon thing. All kinds of weird stuff going on. I mean, the variation in the amount of traffic is one thing that I would say is pretty strange. It, having done DoorDash, pretty frequently, pretty much full time for like 7 months or more, you kind of get to know. I mean, you would think you would kind of get to know like get to notice patterns and what times would be busy for orders, what kind of traffic. But it seems totally random though sometimes though. And one thing I noticed right away is that there's a lot of people out driving around sometimes at times where you would expect them to all be at work or something. I mean, other people have these normal jobs and stuff like that. Somehow they're able to afford to have a big house and all this kind of stuff, right? So you would assume that they have jobs or whatever, but you go out in the middle of the afternoon and see like a huge, traffic jam out on what was once, a fairly small town. It's weird. It's weird that if I show up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekday at the Safeway, that I can hardly find a place to park. It's weird, you know, that during hours when you would expect most people to be at their jobs or something, there could be a traffic jam, you know. Want to talk about more Matrix glitches? Here's one from this morning. Uh, this morning, so there's this train that comes by, not every day, but most days, and it blows its horn really early. It goes kind of. Anyways, this train passed You can hear it go by and blowing its horn and hear which direction it's going. But this happened multiple times in a row. The same train. Well, it's kind of like a deja, like the Matrix deja vu. Like, oh yeah, I saw a cat, and then a couple minutes later, the same cat that looked just the same. It was weird. Like, oh, it happens when they change something. Like that kind of thing. It was like that, but with a train. That happened this morning. Like this kind of shit happens. Kind of weird, like Matrix glitch sort of stuff happens on pretty much day-to-day basis. Another example of a Matrix glitch from nearby. One of the places I do pickups at in town here. Sometimes I'll get a shop and deliver to go to Walgreens. And the whole entrance to the store changed locations. Other sort of stuff that happens is you'll see like I'll give the parking lot example. It's not just Walmart that this has happened at, but I've seen this like some. I notice things like I'll go to say I'll go to do my laundry over by Walmart or something, right, or this laundromat, and I'll get there one day and it looks like they resurfaced the parking lot. Like, they just resurfaced brand new paint, all the, concrete mediums, or it's all been cleaned up and fresh paint for the lines of the parking spots and everything. And then I show up there like 2 weeks later and it just looks like old, worn out shit with like, moss growing on it and stuff. Or I'll go out and like sometimes like city vehicles will look totally different. Like there's the cop cars look completely different than they did a week ago or 2 weeks ago or a month ago or whatever. It looked like completely different cop cars, completely different. The garbage trucks look different. The ambulances look different. The fire trucks look different. I remember one time I saw a blue fire truck. You know, like what the. Every time I saw an orange fire truck, like weird, weird shit. The sirens will sound different. One day they got, red and blue lights flashing at another. You'll see a different car that looks totally different that just has blue lights that like, you know. You see different uniforms. I don't know. I've noticed all kinds of weird changes and weird shifts, from time to time. Sometimes I'll get into a store to buy something, whether I'm buying, whatever it is. Say beer, for instance. Fucking, I'll go to a store and like the prices will be like there will be a different feeling, like there's like some kind of positive sort of energy feeling. You get there and it's like the prices are like they were 10 or 15 years ago. And the packaging is different and just one Mandela effect thing involving beer that I noticed, like one of the early ones that I noticed is like one day all the glass 40 ounces that they used to have out everywhere were gone. and everything came in these 42-ounce plastic bottles, which looked smaller than the glass bottles. Like, weird, you know? I don't know. I've seen all kinds of weird shit. I lived at this place kind of out in the country with my mom for like 20 years, and when these Mandela effect stuff started to be more and more noticeable, I started to see all kinds of strange things. I would see, like a tree that fell down in the yard next to ours. One day, and it got cut up by chainsaws. I heard them, cutting it with the chainsaws, stacking the logs. I watched them drive past with, pickup truckloads of logs. And then, like a week or two later, the tree was back. And I'd see other things, like I'd see houses that had been on some property on the road, between there and town. Houses that had been there for the whole time I lived there, and suddenly the house would just disappear, and there'd be some new construction, and it looked like they were building brand new the same house that was there before. Other times I'd see trees that I noticed, because I'd walked past or driven past these trees, for 20 years or something. I'd drive past, and the tree looked like it was not half the size it used to. Or there'd be like a little baby tree that looked like the same tree, but much smaller in a place of where the old tree was. Or I'll see things like a neighbor, has a new fence one day, and a week later I go past and their fence looks like it's falling apart and really old. The boards are all rotted out, Or, one day they'll have a chain link fence that looks brand new, and another day it'll be an old, wood fence that's falling apart, and another day it'll be a chain link fence that looks like it's been there for a long time and it's got rust on it and it looks like it's falling apart. Or you look across the street at the neighbor's house, and they've had this like single porch light on their porch, and now they have a different porch light fixture. It's got like four light bulbs or something. And then a couple days later, you look out, it's the same old one light fixture, one bulb fixture, or a two bulb fixture, things that change. My dad's house changed colors. He said he hadn't painted it, like he didn't even seem to notice. Like, another thing I'll see like very people that look very similar, like almost doppelgangers of other people. I see that a lot. People, someone that looks like somebody but they're like, 20 or 30 years older or younger. Like this guy Bill, I know, man. I've seen a whole bunch of different people that look like him. There's this guy Brian I used to know, knew from like 20 years ago or something. And then in the last couple of years, I started running into this guy that looks just like him, like only younger. The guy's like in his 20s. This Brian dude would be like in his 50s or something now, And this dude, I mean, maybe it's his kid or something. It's in the same town, but I mean, freaking doppelganger. I see like doppelgangers of my mom all over the place almost every day. Chicks that look just like my ex girlfriends and stuff like that, too. But it's not them. Like there was a girl working at one of these grocery stores that looks almost identical to this other girl that works at the post office, and both look almost identical to this ex-girlfriend Rachel that I used to date like 15 years ago. But I mean, I've seen even weirder shit than that. I mean, now this doppelganger thing, it's especially like people that I know and stuff. I'll see doppelgangers of these people that I know like all over the fucking place. Remember they had this parade a couple of years back, and I was living at a motel, and I sat in the parking lot and watched this parade. And this pickup truck towing a trailer, I mean, they didn't even hardly try with the parade, basically. And I was just like, okay, there's some nice cars driving down the street, and people like towing a trailer with people sitting in the back waving and stuff like that. Like they didn't really even try with floats or anything, it seemed like. But anyways, so this truck that was for this retirement home that my mom used to work at goes by, and I see this woman that looks like my mom in the truck, but my mom had died, you know. And there's this chick that looks just like my mom sitting in the truck for the float for the place that she used to work at. And she looked at me like she was sad or something. Like, yeah. Seen some weird shit, man. I mean, the Truman Show sort of stuff that happens is... This is why I would say it's like a Truman Show. Some of the stuff is like the Truman Show kind of stuff. Like, well, like how he would like walk into some place he's never been before or something and say, "Hi, Truman." And you're thinking, how the hell did that guy know my name? You know? I run into total fucking strangers that call me by name, you know? I've had other weird shit where like one thing, for instance, just as an example of the kind of stuff that happens sometimes is I had this girl was like looking at me. She pulls out her phone and then she posed for a selfie in front of me. And sometimes I'll see like people like, oh hey, like I'm some kind of celebrity. That's not the only time. Like there's other times where it seemed like people have acted like I was some kind of celebrity. Like, oh, it's him. Oh hey, you know, like they want to get their fucking picture taken or in front of me or some weird shit. Like, you know, it's like Truman Show kind of stuff, you know. Let's see, I'm gonna have to pull out a blender here. I think I have one. All kinds of weird stuff. I mean, some stuff I would consider to be like positive experiences in the Matrix kind of thing. Like, for instance, I think I've had experiences where I've had some experiences that were kind of like incredible, like involving animals and stuff. Like I had an experience where I've had deer come right up, up to me almost close enough to touch them when I'm walking out in the woods and stuff. Had a bird sit on my lap one time. I've had little birds just start following me around and stuff. And hummingbirds just fly right up to my face, like saying hi and stuff. Like that sort of stuff is cool. Or when I'll go out, I've gone out on deliveries at night sometimes, and just like a bunch of deer fucking coming out of everywhere. Kind of having to pay super close attention because there's just deer popping out of the woods everywhere. You know? And sometimes I'll have a day where I go out making deliveries, doing DoorDash or whatever, and like almost every place I go, there's like a herd of turkeys. I'll show up at a house, there'll just be like a turkey perched up on a fence next, looking at me and shit. I mean that kind of stuff is cool. I had an experience when I was a kid where I got like really close to a herd of elk. Other experience where I get close to deer. Then the neighbor brings me some pocket watch that they found in a used. Their parents bought a used car, and there was a pocket watch in there with my name on it. So, to me with love from a little deer. Had some seriously strange experiences. It's hard not to wonder about this sort of stuff. Like, what is this place? Why am I here? What is the purpose of this? You know, I feel like I feel like there's some mystery to be solved that if I could figure it out, that there's maybe some ability that. I mean, how much does our consciousness manifest reality? I mean, could we just focus and if learn how to use our mind in such a way that we could be living in paradise or something? There was this. What was that movie? Tomorrowland. Where like Tomorrowland was this amazing place they went to, and then they find out like they're predicting some apocalyptic future for the world or something. And then this girl shows up that believed that it could change, and all of a sudden shows like a completely different version of the future appears on the screen. You know, it really feels like we're being put in a position where our someone is shaping our beliefs of our reality in such a way that they're trying to steer us toward an apocalyptic and destructive ends. But why do they need our focus and our attention so much? Maybe it's because the true conscious beings are the ones that are truly manifesting reality. Maybe the true conscious beings could be steered to manifest a better reality. That's what we could have. Maybe we could have a paradise on earth this very minute. I mean, I wonder about stuff like that. Like I mentioned, the time I was drunk and I snapped my fingers and all the sirens went silent. Was that just a coincidence? If it wasn't a coincidence, what does that mean? You know? I mean, can we control this place? I haven't even mentioned some of the sorts of abilities that I've had at times. For instance, there's something you hear people talking about what's called speaking in tongues, the gift of tongues or whatever. You hear different sects of Christianity speaking about the gift of tongues. There was a couple times in my life where I felt like I had this ability to, but it wasn't like babbling. It was like an ability to speak, read, and understand foreign languages, like all of them, you know? So that's my view of what the gift of tongues actually is, would be the ability to understand and speak and read fluently in all languages. Like a reversal of what happened to the Tower of Babel kind of thing. I really feel like there's so much that we're capable of, that real conscious beings are capable of, that we're made so painfully unaware of, and we are being constantly bullied into a position where we are distracted from figuring these things out, from taking charge of our abilities, from having charge of our life. We're kept in a position where we're essentially enslaved and forced to live in a way that's completely unnatural. It's completely detrimental to our development as individuals or as a species. All kinds of things don't make sense here, really, when you really think about them. There's a lot of things that don't make sense. Like, one thing that would easily point out would be, well, check out, like, movies, music, right? Don't you find it strange if you turn on a rock station, it's all oldies, almost entirely? The groups like Metallica and, Megadeth still be selling out concerts, but doesn't seem to be hardly any new rock bands. I mean, clearly that sort of thing is done on purpose. They keep having to rehash old movies and old TV shows because they don't have any new ideas. Doesn't it seem like it would take longer than a generation or two to run out of ideas for new things? For new songs, new movies, new TV series, ideas, so on and so forth. So why is the sort of content so limited? Hmm. Hmm. I don't know, man. Just this guy Matt, the channel Quantum Consciousness, he calls this sort of thing stalled century. You know. Hmm. I don't know, man. A lot of weird stuff in the world, but it seems so fake and organic, inorganic. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, look at the like the insanity of say the insanity of the left of Democrats and the type of stuff that they say and the speeches they give, like, and the kind of weird agendas that they push and so on, right? Like, why would they do that? I mean, because, well, what do I mean? I mean, why don't they just fucking lie to us? Why don't they just, why don't they just lie? I mean, you think they're not capable of coming up with believable lies? Do you think they're really that bad at lying that they makes things so obvious? It just doesn't add up. That you think they're so bad at covering their tracks and lying that they have to be so obvious? It seems to me the things we're seeing them for a reason. It's almost like the universe or God or whatever is slapping us in the face, saying, "Look, you idiots, this isn't real." It's making everything so absurd. It's like it's grabbing us and shaking us and slapping us in the face to say, "This isn't real, idiot." You know, that's how it seems. Actually get rid of that. Sorry. I mean, think how absurd all this stuff is. Like, if you look around, we just see all these things that are so weird and so absurd, so obvious to so many people. And yet it seems like so many people are asleep and don't even notice it. But to those who do notice the absurdity of it, you ever stop to question why? Why is it so absurd? Why are they being so obvious? Why is it so in your face, you know, everything? It's just weird, isn't it? Well, I mean, I'll give you a basic example, right? Why are they putting out all these news articles and talking openly about wanting us to eat bugs or about 3D printed meat and so on and so forth? When they wouldn't have had to have told us anything about it. They could have just started putting it in our food anyways and not telling us. You know what I mean? It's like they need our participation, they need our consent or something. And also, like, let's say that you imagine if you were a conqueror, if you had an agenda that you wanted to rule the world, you wanted to be king of the world or whatever, right? Well, as king of the world, how would you want to envision your subjects greeting you when you see them? Would you want to be able to walk down the street and have them adoring you and loving you, or would you want them pelting you with rotten fruit and screaming obscenities at you? You know, I mean, you think you would want to be you'd want them to like you, wouldn't you? You'd want to be able to walk down Main Street and have everyone say, "Oh, thank you, Lord. Just so happy that you're in charge." That's what you would want, right? I mean, so why are they being so obvious? Why are they making themselves hated when they could have just. I mean, you think they can't afford to hire the best and brightest of, psychologists and social engineers to make, and PR people and advertising agencies to make them look wonderful and good and make everybody like them and stuff. You see what I'm saying? So why are they so freaking obvious? It's like a mockery, is what it seems like, right? It seems like a mockery. Like they're just flaunting in our face, you know. Well, I mean, take for instance, like Hollywood and stuff, right? I mean, these people, we're talking about people whose sole profession it is to pretend to be something that they're not, to convince you that something fake is real, you know? They're professional bullshit artists, basically. That their job is to, they will pretend to be the gunslinging cowboy, or they'll pretend to be the drunk airline pilot, or they'll pretend to be, the hero that rescues the damsel in distress, or whatever role they're gonna play. With all this information coming out about them being Satanists and pedophiles and all this stuff coming out in the open. Doesn't it seem strange that so much stuff like that would be coming out? That they would be showing themselves as being wicked when literally they had one job. They have one job, and their job is to pretend to be whatever role that they're playing. So why do they all seem to be playing the role of the villain? You see what I'm saying? Why so obvious? It doesn't add up. You think information like about things like that would come out by accident? Well, I mean, for instance, you can go online and search around enough, you can find like videos of these Hollywood actors in big groups getting together, dressing in weird robes and or hanging out at fake cannibal dinners, eating cutting into cake shaped like human bodies and stuff like that. Like, why would they do stuff like that? Not only do stuff like that, but on film and leave it out there for everyone to see it. Doesn't that seem strange to you? I mean, it looks like people are trying to cover things, like there's a cover up trying to happen, but it also looks like, oh, a bunch of things are being exposed about, oh, Epstein, client, all this, da 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 da, right? But is it really? You think that people that control all the freaking agencies that control everything you see and hear everywhere, that literally like own the servers that host everything we're ever allowed to see or hear that comes out on the internet, do you think that those people can't actually control the sort of stuff that we're able to see and hear? That they're not better at their job than that? Like, so why? I don't know, it's just weird. Shit doesn't add up. Very little about this world adds up. I mean, I was taught the same kind of crap as everybody else when I was a kid. I went to school, to a public school, had parents and family, and sat in front of a TV. I just turned 40 recently, and I don't feel that much different like I'm that much different than I was when I was young, but I look at the world around me now compared to the world the way it was when I was a kid, and it's so different. It's way, way different. I mean, it's like I'm not even on the same planet anymore, and it's really weird. It doesn't seem possible that something like this could happen in such a short time. I mean, it'd be like going and taking a nap in the old west and waking up and there's like flying cars fucking flying overhead, and you're like, what the? it, I'm talking about like the. I'm not talking about like technologically, although there has been weird freaking technological advances that don't make any freaking sense. But I'm talking about like the whole society and culture and the way people communicate with each other and the way people behave and just the way the world is now, the way politics are, the type of things that we see on the. It's all changed so much in such a short amount of time that it would be impossible for something like that to happen. If you want to think it's just like ideological subversion, like Yuri Bezmenov talked about or something, I guess, but it just doesn't add up for this much of a drastic change to happen to society so quickly. I mean, I watched things happen. I watched, changes occur and weird things going on as I was, from the time I was in my, late teens through my 20s and everything. I saw a lot of things happening, and I noticed that people seemed to be under some kind of hypnosis or something. But it's still like that. But what's weird is like people are hypnotized on a level that is beyond my comprehension. It's just like doesn't make sense. All right, well, whatever. I guess I'm done blabbing for now.